Hey everybody! I am working on some eyes today, so I thought I would take a little video and show you what I'm doing. I'm making eyes for Kit, my People 65 Ein, who I just finished her eye-opening modification, and you'll be seeing that soon. These are some eyes that I had done previously. I think I was doing this when I was messing around with the Arteza paints. I'm not positive, but I'm just going to repaint them because I don't have any good resin right now. I was going to cast more eye bases and my resin is all crystallized, so I'm just going to have to do something else. One thing that I wanted to experiment with while I'm working on these is somebody had suggested on a YouTube video that I could try making a mask with painter's tape and a hole punch to try to get neater edges on my irises, so I figure that's worth a shot. I don't know if it'll work out or not, but we'll see. I'm gonna check this against my hole punch. Whoa, okay. I think my punch is actually too small. Let me look, I'm about to find out. Oh yeah, that's definitely gonna be too small. It's a really tiny little hole, and it didn't punch all the way through, so that's a good idea, I think, but it's not quite gonna work for these. Maybe on a smaller pair of eyes, but it was worth a shot. I'll try it on another pair or get a larger hole punch. And that's something that would be nice to have for making eyes anyway, especially the ones that are flat, because then I can just punch out the irises that I draw on paper. So Kit's eyes are hazel, and I'm going to start by covering these with this Americana paint, and it's not in focus, but it's a milk chocolate color, and the reason I'm using this really cheap craft paint is because it has a really matte finish. And I want a matte finish here because I am going to experiment with drawing detail in the iris using colored pencil. So the first thing I have to do is cover this. This one is a mess. It's like gold over purple or something like that. It's not very pretty in person. It looks more bronzish on camera, but it's a very muddy, unattractive color. If I'm being honest. I don't want to put this in too thick because I want it to be able to dry right away. It is freezing in here, so I have my space heater on, and I'm hoping that I can just like hold these in front of the space heater and maybe it'll dry them out really quickly. That way I can get right to the drawing part. That one is a much thinner coat. I think I'm going to get some of this paint back out of this one if I can. It's just too much. Okay. And I will have to clean up the edges of these when I'm done with rubbing alcohol or brush cleaner because they're kind of a mess. Honestly, I will probably do this and then hate them, and then I'm going to get out like the little DIY plastic eye kits and just snap something together with those, because I made some eyes for another doll with those earlier and they turned out really well. And I'm going to show her to you in a second, and you get to be the first people to see her, like, at all. My paint water from yesterday. I have a big setup here. I'm actually gonna pull my camera, like zoom out and see if I can show you. Oh yeah. I've got all my face up stuff out here. I've got like my palette with my gouache from doing the face up, and I've got my painty water up here still. And this is the doll that I was working on and her eyes. and you'll actually be seeing the unboxing for her on Saturday. Well, people who are at the $5 tier and up will see her on Saturday. Everybody else has to wait a week. But she is an Impel doll Lydia. And I had no intention of getting another doll this year. But Alice's Collections had an incredible sale going on with free shipping. So I decided to take some of my Christmas money and get that. So alright, I'm gonna try to dry these in front of the heater real quick. I'll be right back. Okay, so spoiler alert, I did not come right back. It's been about an hour. I got hungry and these did not look good, so I decided to leave them and go get some lunch. So now I'm gonna pick some colored pencils off of my swatch chart. These are the Arteza watercolored pencils, and I have hazel eyes, but mine are more of like a green hazel instead of the brown blue hazel. So I think that's what I'm gonna do for Kit. I've picked some colors. I've got A092, which is this one here. That's a moss green. I've got white. A006 right here. It's called Matcha. And then I've got Fern, which is A029 up here. And I think I'm mostly going to be using those, but I also grabbed a blue one just in case I change my mind, because I might want to put some blue like right in the middle, but we'll see. I had considered using my regular Prismacolor pencils for this instead of the watercolor pencils, because I honestly don't know how these are going to perform. But I'm just going to do my best. We'll see what happens. And I don't know. If I end up experimenting with the Prismacolor ones later, then I'll let you know. My biggest concern with that is that I just don't think that they would do a very good job of allowing the resin, like the clear resin, over the top, because the Prismacolor pencils are wax, which is going to be water retardant. So some of these look like they might still be a little wet. Hopefully they're not, but I guess we'll find out pretty quickly if they are. And I don't know if this is going to show up at all. It looks like it's showing up a little bit. This is why having time to do experimentation is important, because you never know how things are going to turn out, and I don't think doing a really nice video is the best time for me to try to figure out what works and what doesn't. I do it anyway, and sometimes it turns out amazingly, but most of the time when I do that, it just ends badly, if I'm being entirely honest. I've been able to pull it together in the past, but I think I would prefer to just learn separately and do it the right way later on. It's laying down some color, but I don't feel like it's very opaque. You can't even really see it on camera, can you? So, round 2. Since the watercolor pencil didn't work, I'm going to try the gouache instead. I've picked out the A142, A189, and A132 for this batch. I've got them on a palette here. I just stuck my finger in brown paint. That's lovely. So I've got them on my plastic palette here, and I've added just a little bit of water with Flow Aid. I'm going to keep the gouache really thick so that I hopefully can get good coverage with it, but I'll thin it down if I need to get thinner strokes. Okay, so I'm using one of my face-up brushes for this. It's my Princeton Watercolor Liner. Oh, that's immediately so much better. And this brush is a 10-0, by the way, so it's small, but it's not the smallest one that I have. I'm just going to get some texture going in the middle here. I think I may actually want to switch to a thinner brush. And maybe next time hold this a little bit closer to my face because these are kind of far away and it's kind of hard to see what I'm doing. But it could also be I'm not wearing my glasses. I don't actually wear my glasses very often, just when I drive. Or when I'm playing Skyrim and the words in the inventory are so small that I can't read them. So I like this bright green for the center, but I think I'm gonna want the darker green to add a little more texture. Clean up my brushes. Let's see what we've got. Let's use this one. It's one of my other face-up brushes. It's a Winstonia Berry Wine. These are actually nail art brushes, but they're very cheap and they work really well. They have a good quality to them, and the bristles do a really good job of sticking together. So you get really nice fine points. Much finer lines. I'm not too worried about the middle being clean because the pupil is going to go in there anyway. And cover it all up. I feel like I'm doing a horrible job with this though. To this day, my best eyes have been the ones that I just design them in Photoshop and print them, and I think it's because, you know, when you're working digitally, I have this huge canvas and everything's like 300 dpi and I can zoom way in and manipulate every pixel, and I just don't have the kind of skill needed for that detail work in real life. I'm getting some interesting texture here, but I don't know if it's interesting good. I also pretty much obliterated the brown. That's interesting. Maybe I'll start with the darker green on a pair. Put a dollop in the middle, and then I can just kind of pull up from it. It's hard for me to get that visible. My hand keeps blocking the light. Twist the blinds open real quick, see if that helps. With my studio being right next to the room that we use as a guest room, the guest room is facing west. It just has one window, but it's really bright since it's west. And sometimes, if it's not too hot or too cold, I open that door and try to get some extra light. But I don't do it too often because it tends to not be very good weather for it. We're like one extreme or the other. We're too hot or we're too cold. And we have a furnace and air conditioning unit for the upstairs of the house. We don't use it very often because that's very expensive. And aside from that, half the time it doesn't work anyway. So that is okay. It looks better in person than it does on camera, I think, because on camera it just looks like a dark blob. Let me see if I can shine a light on it and make it visible. Kind of. I think pooling it in the middle and pulling out worked a lot better, so I'm going to try that with the lighter green on a pair as well. I say a pair, but I haven't made anything that matches yet, so I'm just making a bunch of individual funny looking eyes. I see all these beautiful realistic eyes that makers share on Instagram, and I think I want to do that. My problem is that I want to be able to do it right now. I don't want to have to wait and practice for months to be able to do that. I want to do it right now without having to work for it. Which I know is terribly unrealistic. And really very immature of me. But sometimes it's hard to be patient for your skill to catch up to where you are mentally. It's like, yes, I'm ready to do that. I'm ready to be that good at it and have all of my dolls have eyes that look that nice. But everything takes time. I think the most important thing is finding a technique for my particular skill set. I have a really hard time with detail work because of how shaky my hands are. I've never really been able to get past that shakiness. It doesn't show as much when I'm doing face-ups on larger dolls. So they're my favorites to work on. Sometimes it's worse than other times, but I try not to be discouraged. This eye, I'm going to add some blue in the center. I don't know if anybody remembers, I guess the company's been gone for a long time, but I used to really admire, oh, my camera has been out of focus this whole time, I'm so sorry. I used to really admire doll bakery eyes, and they were hand painted with like the thinnest veining in the iris. I used to look at that and wonder how anybody could possibly do that. And it just takes a steady hand and a very small brush. That line was way too thick. Rinse my brush. One thing that makes the gouache really nice is how easily it rinses out of the brushes. Since it's water-based, you just kind of swish it and it comes right out. You don't have to fight it like you do with acrylics. So this little reservoir of blue in the middle isn't going to be visible at all, because that's going to be underneath the pupil. So we're just going to draw that out. Oops. I hope to do a face-up tomorrow, but I have to go pick up some MSC first because my can is pretty much empty. That's kind of an interesting look. I'm gonna put a dollop of the bright green in there too. Just for a few streaks. Because this already has a lot going on and I don't want to make it overwhelming. That pear might be interesting when it's all dried. I don't know if I mean interesting good or interesting bad, but interesting. I'll try to do the same thing here. My camera just does not want to stay on. So at this point I've been at this for a while. Nothing looks very good, so I'm just going to admit defeat and make some acrylic eyes. They'll last her for now, and I've got a variety of irises that I've printed in the past on a bunch of different types of paper, so you can get a lot of really interesting different looks. This one is a matte finish photo paper. This is regular printer paper, but it's too small, so I'm not using that one. This is regular sticker paper, and I actually used my Silhouette to cut this out, and it was really difficult to get that to work because I had covered it with contact paper to make it waterproof so that the resin works with it a little better. But I don't have any hazel ones on this sheet, otherwise I could use them. All I have is just green. And this was before I got my new printer, so there's a lot of bad color banding on this, and somebody is calling me. It's my husband! Okay. We're just gonna cut this out. Very, very carefully. I've noticed that the smaller the scissors, the better when it comes to cutting things like this. And this will be her eyes for now. If you notice the black mark on my hand, that's because I rubbed my eye while I was on the phone. And I completely forgot that I was wearing mascara. I don't wear makeup very often, so it was a surprise. There. And then we just put that in. Make sure it lays down flat. And pop it together if I can. There we go. And those are good for temporary eyes. There's not as much brown in them as I would like, but it'll do for now. I actually made her with the intention of using 12mm but I am out of 12mm bases, so 14s will do for now. Nice. So painting eyes is not a good one for me. I think I'm gonna stick to doing these and maybe seeing if I can sculpt some more interesting bases. That's it for this time though. See you later.